All right, welcome everybody. If you are tuning in to our BCTV, it has been a while and just been a little bit busy, but we are excited to kind of get BCTV kicked back off. A lot of times on BCTV, we'd have someone on to tell their testimony, kind of get to know them a little bit better in our church family. And so I know that we've missed that. I want to get back into that. But tonight, I wanted to do something very special, and that has to do with prophecy, biblical prophecy. I'm pretty convinced, and I think that if you've been a part of Brighton Chapel very long, you know this to be true about me, is that I believe that this book, the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, it is a divine timeline. And now you may not see it that way, and you know, that's fine. You can believe whatever it is that you want to believe, but it doesn't deny the fact that there is a timeline going on here from beginning to end. And Genesis meaning beginnings, and Revelation kind of bringing this to a completion, like a full view that you get to see everything come to its fruition. And Jesus even says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. That is who God is, and that's what God has done. And so what God has done in His Word is God has given us a divine timeline, and that you get to look at it and see where you are on the timeline. Now, what's been going on in the world, and especially in the Middle East, is why I felt like this is the time where I needed to get back in on BCTV and do a Bible prophecy update. I've had several people ask me, and again, just asking me questions about how does this all play out, and how does this work, and how do we know this, and I've got some friends that would like to learn more about it. So what do I say to them about this conversation? There are many people that don't want to talk about this. I get it. I would rather talk about it than not, but I know that there are some that don't. It's kind of like they want to. It'll happen as it's supposed to happen, and that's totally fine. Some of you like to know how things are going to play out. It gives the big broad strokes, and so like this war, this 12-day war that's going on between Israel and Iran, it wasn't specifically addressed in the text, but the broad strokes of leading up to where it's going, this doesn't surprise us that this has taken place. So what I want to do tonight is I want to give you an overview, just so that you can see how this all plays out. Now, it starts right here with creation, and it's the divine timeline that brings you to the point of the cross, which is the life of Jesus, his death and resurrection, and then it brings you to an end. And so I put a lot of things on this timeline right here to kind of give you like a summary. And where we are, we're obviously not pre-cross. We were after the cross because Jesus was 2,000 years ago on the timeline. So this is all after or before us. So we are after the cross. So we're somewhere after on this timeline. And so the Bible gives us a clear indication that we're in a period of time that we have coined the church age. And so if you read Revelation chapter, if you take your Bible and you read Revelation chapter 1, this is the scene. It's a revelation where God is speaking to John, one of the disciples, and he's like, I want you to write this down. And so chapter 1, he's pretty clear here. I want you to write this out. He says, I'm the Alpha and the Omega, who is and who was and who is to come, the Lord Almighty. And so what we have here, he says to John, I want you to write in verse 19 of chapter 1 of Revelation. He says, I want you to write, therefore, what you have seen will take place later. Now, the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw on my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands, is this. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. So there were 7 churches that God identified at that time, so chapter 2 and 3, and that there are 7 different churches, which when you look at it, you're like, okay, this was a letter that God sent to an angel that was looking over that church in that particular location. You have the church in Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. So these were churches in a particular area in Asia Minor John is on the island of Patmos, and he's into the Mediterranean Sea, and he's looking east, and he sees, he could see, but I mean, to some degree, he could only see so much, but off into the distance, there are 7 churches that God has a letter that he wants to send directly to each of these 7 churches. And so each of those churches, when you read them, there's some evidence that they're not only for churches in that time, but they also, looking back now, because we've been living 2,000, that those churches represented an age of the church. So like what the church was like during that period of time. And so when you look at time and you're looking at the details, the specific details of the last church, the church in Laodicea, being lukewarm and not hot, not cold, but lukewarm, kind of lethargic, is very much a picture of what's going on in the church today. It's almost like, so water, it can be cold out of the faucet, but it will always tend to go into the temperature of the environment it's in. So like water, if you put it into a freezer, what is it going to become? Ice, right? So if water is put into an environment, it will become that. That's what he's saying about the church. The church will become more like the environment of which it's in. And right now, it's become more like the environment, and that is, it is woke, it is struggling with biblical truth, it's the rejection of God and as authority over our lives. So there's a lot of evidence that the church of Laodicea is a reflection of the current church today. Well, if you look at that in order, that is the last letter of the 7 churches that he wrote to, which would give us indication that if these are 7 churches in each generation, but that that the Laodicean church is at the end of a period of time known as the church age, is what we coined it. The Bible doesn't call it that. We've coined this as the church age. Then what's next? So the idea is, well, look at chapter 4. Chapter 4 is where God pulls John out of the world and into the heavenlies, into where God dwells. And what we see is angels and believers, and they're all together at the throne room of God. They're worshiping God, and they're all talking about this scroll. And it is a scroll that has seals on it. And they're like, well, who's even worthy to open up the scroll? In other words, it's like the scroll is written for somebody to read. It's not just for anybody. And the only person that could actually open up the scroll would be Jesus. And the scroll, when opened up by him, is Revelation chapter 6, all the way, the point of it, it goes all the way to chapter 19. And that chapter 6 to 19 is describing a period of time. And it's described as there's a certain amount of time to the middle and then a certain amount of time to the end. And it's a total of 7 years. And then after that 7 years, the scriptures talk about in Revelation 19 that Jesus is coming back, that Jesus comes back with believers in heaven that are coming back to the earth to wage war and to set up his throne for 1,000 years. Now, I tell you all of that because, again, just here in Revelation, it is describing the end and how the timeline will finish. That the church age, Revelation chapter 2 and 3, that there's going to be a 7-year period of time, and that after that, Jesus is going to come, and there is going to be 1,000 years, which is the millennium, and then after the 1,000 years will be the final judgment and eternity. So when you look at the Bible is clear on helping us to understand how this is going to play out, how this is going to go. And so we're looking at all of this going, okay, how do I put and where is what and how is this all going to play out? Okay, so I know you're going to have questions, and I want you to make sure, I know I see you, John, and second, sound is coming and going. Okay, well, okay. Tiffany, if you could check on that and just see, maybe it's the internet. Who knows, we could be having some of those issues about, is it coming through over there? Okay, well, we'll do our best, John. We'll keep working on this. All right. So here's the deal. When you look at the timeline, there's a lot of scriptures where we want to know where we are, when we are, and how this all plays out. And why is what's going on in Israel right now, why is that kind of doing, why is it going a little bit weird? Why is there a war in Iran? Did the Bible talk about that? And again, there's some things that the Bible doesn't specifically address, but it could obviously, God uses everything in leading to the next spot, the next phase. So I want to kind of unpack a little bit this. Again, this is a lot of information, but I want you to see how the Bible works. Okay, so when Jesus was here, the disciples said to him, they were like, you talk about the end. And in Matthew 24, so if you want to turn there, Matthew 24, Jesus says, is anyone else sound coming and going on BC? Okay, so John, I know you're looking into it. We'll see what we can do and kind of go from there. So the question here in Matthew 24, the disciples ask, when will the sign of your coming be and of the end of the age? When's the temple going to be destroyed? Because Jesus said there's going to be no stone left on top of another at the Temple Mount and at the temple. And when's that going to happen? And then when are you coming back? And how do we know that this is going to be the end? So when you look at Matthew 24, Jesus gives an answer of this period of time right here. So it's part of the church age, and it goes all the way to the tribulation. So Jesus is specifically addressing to the disciples what they should be looking for. Some of the things that you'll see. Watch out that no one deceives you. So there will be deception. For many will come in my name, claiming I'm the Christ, and will deceive many. You will hear wars and rumors of wars. But see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. It goes on to say, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All of these things that you're seeing or that you will see are but the beginning of birth pangs. So the idea is you're going to see stuff that's going to give some indications that are out of the norm. Things that are unexplainable, things that you're like, why is this happening more frequently than it did before? Why are there more wars? Why are there more famines? Why are there more earthquakes? Why are there more pestilences? Why is there more deception? All of that will continue to increase, like giving birth. It's giving birth to something, and which really ultimately it's going to be giving birth to this period of time, which is the day of the Lord. And it's the judgment, the scroll, the seals that are going to describe what that is. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So he talks about in verse 15 in Matthew 24. So when you see standing in the holy place, the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the roof of his house go down to take anything. Let no one in the field go back. You know how dreadful it's going to be for pregnant mothers and nursing mothers. And this is going to be a time of great distress. And they're like looking for Jesus, and they're waiting for him. And that is going to be towards the end of the tribulation. And then they're waiting for Jesus' return. And that is going to come at the end of the tribulation. Now, this abomination of desolation, when is that? He says, he says, so when you see standing in the holy place, the holy of holies, this is going to be during that period of time, something is going to take place where the people of Israel are going to flee to Petra. They're going to flee into the mountains, and they're going to hide for the 3.5 years until they see the coming of the Lord. And then it says, look, he says, look, you're gonna say, well, some are gonna say, oh, there he is, and here he is, and oh, this is, he says, but in verse 30 of chapter 24, at that time, the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. And so here you have this: defeat the enemy, Lucifer, and all of those that have followed him, and he will set up his throne for the millennial kingdom. So that's all in just Matthew 24. And Jesus is talking about that. Now, he's talking about a lot of this stuff that's happening right here, and they are way back here. That's 2,000 years later that they're going to see some intensity. Well, Jesus also says, look, when you see life, in verse 32, when you see, learn the lesson from the fig tree, as soon as this twig get tender and leaves come out, you know the summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things that take place, he says, I tell you, you will know that it is near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, the generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. And so what happened in 1945 is where Israel became a nation again, and Israel is known as the fig tree, and life came back into the fig tree. Now, again, I'm pumping you full of information here. Hang tight. We'll bow tie this together so that you can see what's going on here. But what he says, when you see life come back into the fig tree, which is Israel, that generation that sees life come back into the fig tree is going to see all of this take place, and will see the coming of the Lord, the second coming of Jesus. They're going to see it, that generation. And so the timer started for that generation in 1945 when Israel became a nation again. Now, they didn't have a land, so God gave them the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. And so the UN and everybody came together, and they said they need to be a people, they need to have a place to live, and they gave them back their homeland, which is Israel. And so he's like, Jesus says, I want you to know, and this is obviously not for the disciples, because this is going to happen years later, but it's for us who are following Jesus. When you see life come back to the fig tree, that's the timer, that this all will take place in that generation, that they will see. Generation's like 80 years. And so in that 80 years, you're going to see wars and rumors of wars. You're going to see pestilence and famine and earthquake. You're going to see all of this deception. You're going to see things happening. You're going to be hearing the gospel going forth. You're going to see all this take place. Now, for those that are living at that time, they're also going to see what happens at the tribulation. That they're going to see this thing that happens in the middle, and which is called the abomination of desolation, which is then going to cause them to run and flee to Petra until Jesus comes back. He's saying that generation of Jews are going to see all of that take place and the coming of the Lord. And so you're like, well, what is that thing that happens? What is the abomination of desolation? We'll get to that in just a minute. So in Revelation 6 through 19, you want to read about the tribulation. There's a couple of things that you're going to read. This opens it up. There's seal judgments. And so you're going to see, you're going to see seals. There's 7 seals to another set of judgments, which are the trumpet judgments. They're going to lead to another set of judgments, which is called the bowl judgments. And those bowl judgments are 777 of completion, the number of completion. Those judgments are going to take place, and then that's going to lead all the way to the second coming of Jesus. But something happens at the midpoint. And that's in Daniel chapter 9, verses 25 through 27. So it's an Old Testament, so jump over to the Old Testament. Daniel chapter 9, it's a prophecy, it's a story where he talks about time. And he calls it's the 77's time. It's a prophecy. And he says this in verse 25. He's given them an idea. Now, Daniel is written back here at the exile. So this is around 500, 400 BC. Jesus shows up on the scene around 4 or 5 BC, and he's crucified around 30 AD. So we know that historically. I mean, it is documented proof that these things exist, that Jesus was crucified in Roman execution style at that time. So where they may not have birth records of Jesus, they didn't have stuff like that, but they did have something in Roman archives that there was a Jesus of Nazareth crucified, at that time. So we can go backwards. He was around 33 years old, so you could go back in time. But 500, 400 BC is when Daniel is written. This prophecy is described that there is a time coming, and this is what happens. This is what's going to happen. Know and understand this. From the issuing, this is verse 25, from the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One. So there would be a decree that would be to restore Jerusalem. It's like, here we go. He goes on to say, unto the Anointed One, which is Jesus. Jesus is always referred to as the Anointed One. The ruler comes. There will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. This is 7 sevens of time, 7 years of time, and then 62 7 years of time. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the Anointed One, Jesus, will be cut off. Now, they didn't know his name was Jesus at that time, but we would know that that is who this is referring to. He will be cut off. This is killed on a cross. It says, and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end. Jesus said there will be wars and rumors of wars. And desolations have been decreed. He, who's this he? He will confirm a covenant with many, referring to Israel, for 1 7. That is 7 years. So the tribulation is a 7-year period of time. Daniel's 62 sevens and 7 sevens and 62 sevens lead up to the cross, and the final 7 weeks, the 70th week, is 7 years. It's known as the tribulation. And this is the period of time where someone is going to usher in peace with Israel and her enemies. Going to create peace in the environment. Now, I'm not going to get into it tonight, but if you read Daniel 11 and 12, this is during the Grecian Empire. You will see that when Alexander the Great was no more, when he deceased, that his empire was divided up into 4 parts. There was the north, south, east, and west, okay? And so, or however you're looking at that in the screen. But the northern army and the southern army would always seem to want to duke it out. It's like 2 brothers that want to control. And they would always meet in Israel to have their battles. And so the south would win, the north would win. The south would win, the north would win. And you will find that the south would be the last one to win, and then it would stop. And the idea is that, now again, this is the theory behind it, and that the next ruler who will come out of the north, which would be in the northern part of the Grecian Empire. So they will be Middle Eastern. You've got Syria, you got Lebanon, you've got Turkey, you've got this area that a leader could potentially come. The theory is that a person will come out of obscurity and will be able to bring peace between Israel and her enemies. And that will guarantee 7 years of peace, 7 years with Israel. That is known as the period of tribulation. Well, the scriptures go on to say, in the middle of the 7, okay, go back to Daniel, in the middle of the 7, chapter 9 here, verse 27, this leader will put an end to sacrifice and offering. Now that's an important thing, because right now on the Temple Mount, the Jewish nation does not have a temple on the Temple Mount. We're going to talk about that in just a minute with Ezekiel. But the reason for it is that when the temple was destroyed, AD 70 with Rome, stones were not left upon each other, that Jesus foresaw that, and because he's God, he knows, trying to say, look, a time is coming when this is going to be destroyed, and that in the process of that, the Muslim nations were put a mosque right on top of the Holy of Holies on the Temple Mount. And so they've taken control of the Temple Mount. And so that's right now what's on there is that mosque that the Muslims control. But in the tribulation, that is going to be removed, and the temple for the Jewish nation is going to be replaced, where they would kind of start over with God, that they'll start the sacrificial system, that they will be able to worship God that way. And so they're gonna have this all set up. So the altar, the holies, the Holy of Holies, and the holy place, all of this, the menorah, the bread, all this stuff on the Temple Mount, or in the temple. And you could go to the Old Testament and read in the first 5 books of Moses, the law. You could read about the temple, and you could read about what was in there and and all that stuff is going to be replaced. It's all going to be reestablished. And in order to desecrate, or to make it sacred, they would have to have the ashes of a red heifer, and of a certain age they would sacrifice, and that would be this. It would be memorializing that this is of God, and this is sacred, and this is who we worship. And so all of these pieces will have to get into play. So there's a couple things that need to happen. One, the mosque has to be removed. Has to be removed because, okay. So the Holy of Holies is right in the middle. I'm going to show you this. So right here is the Temple Mount. This is what it looked like. And right here is the Holy of Holies. This blue line is actually what you know is the Dome of the Rock, the Muslim mosque. So if they're going to rebuild the temple, they're going to have this removed so that they can rebuild it the way that it was meant to be, where the Holy of Holies would be in the location. And so they will start sacrifice. They will do all of that. So this is really important to know, because they're going to rebuild this, and they're going to feel like, man, it's like of old, and this is the way it was meant to be. And they're like, because it's God and us and the system. Well, this ruler, this one who will rise up and bring peace so they could build this, it says right here that he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. So what's going to happen here? He's going to come in and go, he's going to stop it all. He will set up an abomination that causes what? Desolation. Meaning, this thing, abomination, is like, he's going to do this bad thing that causes everybody to desolate, to leave, to run. And what he's going to end up doing is that, according to the scriptures, he's going to declare that he is God and that they should worship him. And for the 3.5 years of the tribulation, the last part, Israel, the Jewish nation, is going to run for the hills. They're going to run to Petra, and they're going to hide, waiting for the true Messiah, Jesus, to come back and to rescue them. So in all of this, why am I telling you about the mosque and about the Holy of Holies? Because right now, what you have is the mosque is there on this Temple Mount. This would have to be removed in order for them to rebuild. They are able to rebuild in a moment's notice. They have the red heifers ready to go to be sacrificed to sanctify the temple. And they've got sacrificial system ready to be instituted and ready to go. So you got all these pieces that are just like on the table waiting to be put into play. But this is in the way. That's in the way. And the Muslim nations are the ones that control this. The ones that are, and you could look it up online yourself. You could Google it. Who controls, or who controls the Temple Mount? The Israelites are the sovereignty over the nation. But ultimately, the Muslim community are the ones that control this. And they control who goes up there, who doesn't, and how this is played out. In order for those things to take place, this is going to have to be, I don't know how, but this is going to have to be removed. Now, what you see here, let me get this back here. What you see here on the timeline is that in the middle of the tribulation, this leader is going to, that Daniel talks about, is going to cause a problem that makes Israel run. And what we know in Scripture, he's going to declare himself as God. 2 Thessalonians 2 talks about that. Again, my time is running out, so I want to make sure that I give you what you need. But 2 Thessalonians 2, the scriptures call him, this leader, he will not be, this won't be his name on his birth certificate, but he's known as the Antichrist, so he is not the Christ, the Savior of the world. He's someone that is a fake, an imposter, who will be able to deceive and the multitudes, and the scriptures say that he will suffer a mortal wound, and Satan will actually indwell him, and that's what's going to happen during the middle part of the tribulation. We'll raise him up, and he will take control. And some people think that AI is the Antichrist, and I'm not convinced of that, because AI is not actually living. It's a living being that's going to actually suffer a mortal wound that he will resurrect and make and inhabit and indwell. That is a picture of the Nephilim, which is a human demonic hybrid that existed before and after the flood. And so I think that's a picture of Lucifer doing what Lucifer wanted to do, is in setting up the world so he could control and have all the worship come to him. If you know anything about Lucifer was the worshiping angel. He would lead the other angels in heaven to the throne, and they would worship the Lord. And instead of wanting to give worship to the Lord, he wanted that worship himself. And ultimately, that's what he wants from the beginning. He wants to be worshiped. He wants to be idolized. He wants to be the top. And that's why he couldn't defeat God. God kicked him out. And the only place he could go was on creation, and he came in the form of a serpent, and he went and deceived Adam and Eve into trying to fool them into following him, and he tricked them into that, and as a result, we fell into sin as a result, and the judgment of sin, and that's why we needed a Savior. His name is Jesus, who came, died, rose again to pay for our sin. But this man of, this Antichrist, this man of lawlessness, meaning he has nothing to do with God. He is a law unto himself. He is the one that's going to get this peace treaty. Will break it in the middle, and Jesus will come back and defeat him on his second year. So that's the 7-year peace, is what's going to happen at the beginning of the tribulation. Now, the Bible talks about that there's a rapture event that's going to take place. And I know it's become a speculation, a lot of question as to when is that going to actually take place, and what we know, what we think, what we believe. And I'm convinced of this, and I know that others may not be as convinced, but I think the scriptures teach, and through several examples through the scriptures, that God is going to pull us out prior to the tribulation. That the focal point of the church age is for the Gentile nation. That's why the fig tree is Israel was dead. But when he turns his eye back to Israel, she'll have life again. And that is when the attention of the tribulation becomes the focal point for Israel, and that God wants to save them. So I know that there's a lot going on there, but the scriptures teach, what we have here is 1 Corinthians 15, 1 Thessalonians 4, talk about this trumpet call of God. The dead in Christ will rise first, and then those who are alive will be caught up and meet the Lord in the air. That is, the Latin word is rapturo, which is to be taken out. It's in the Latin scriptures and the translation. That word isn't in the English. We use, there's other words that we use that are in there that depict that. And now, I want to show you this on the timeline here. Ezekiel 37, 38, 39 is at the beginning of the tribulation. Ezekiel 43 is at the end of the tribulation. Ezekiel 43 has to do about the east gate, that Jesus is going to come back. When he comes back, he's going to go through the east gate onto the Temple Mount, and he is going to set up his throne, and he is going to lead the world into a world of peace, genuine, true peace, under his authority and under his leadership. But in order to get there, we have to get to, it starts in Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel 37, if you want to turn there real quick, Ezekiel 37 has to do with the valley of dry bones. It's a vision where Ezekiel looks into this valley and he sees all these bones and they represent Israel, and it's a picture. He says, I'm going to put sinew on them and flesh on them, and I'm going to put a heart in them, and they were hard-hearted, but now I'm going to make it soft, and I'm going to bring them back, and I'm going to bring life back into Israel. That is chapter 37, verses 1 through 14. That is what Jesus talked about the fig tree. This is that moment, Ezekiel 37, verses 1 through 15. But then what you're seeing right now, what I'm convinced of it, as you see in chapter 38, there is this war that's going to come, and it's a war between nations. It's a coalition of nations. Their ancient names are what's written in here, but it's these people. It's Russia, it is Turkey, it is Iran, it is Libya, and it is Sudan. These specific people are going to come together. They're going to surround Israel, and they're going to wage war. And the point of it is that God is going to stop them, and with a great earthquake, there's going to be a great earthquake. He's going to stop their frontal attack, and they will know, the world will know that I am the Lord, and these are my people, and my people will know that I am the Lord, and then I dwell with them. So that's what's coming. So what you're seeing right now is a forming of that. And what we see is, you've got Turkey that is in defiance of Israel and saying, this is uncalled for, and so this war between Iran and Israel. You got Russia, who is backing. Right now, in the moment, they're talking with Putin, and they're saying he's talking about, is he going to join into this scenario in supporting Iran, which, according to Ezekiel 38:39, that's what's going to take place. You got Iran that wants to destroy Israel and the U.S., and so there's all of these things that are kind of like coming together, forming for that moment to happen. We're not there just yet. Now, where is that in Ezekiel 38 and 39 on the timeline? We don't see it in Revelation chapter 6 through 19. We don't see the battle of Magog and Gog with Israel. We don't see that described there. And we don't see it after, so it has to be in this little space right here, right before it. So God brings Israel back together, Ezekiel 37, verses 1 through 15. I also think what you're seeing right now, and this is where Israel is shaking the grip of the Muslim community off of them. This is a battle between Isaac and Ishmael. This is two boys going back into history that have really been opposed to each other. And that the promise that God had made was to Abraham, then consequently to Isaac, and not to Ishmael. And Ishmael believes, no, the promise is to us, and this is our land. And so that's why the Muslim group right now, they're the ones that control the Temple Mount. So when you look at the temple and you look at what's going on here, you see that the Muslims are the ones that are in control of the Temple Mount right now. And this Muslim committee, and they're the ones that have control. They're going to have to be removed, and the chains, the shackles broken from their control, so that they can be freed to rebuild the temple. Now, will they rebuild the temple? I'm going to go back here. Will they rebuild the temple before the tribulation begins, before the peace treaty, before the rapture? I think it shows that this is going to be built at the very beginning of the tribulation, after the peace treaty, because I think the reaction of the Muslim world of what is going to happen here, of them being removed, I think it's going to be a final straw that they're going to say, no, oh no, you don't. That is, they believe that in this space right here, the great prophet Muhammad, actually ascended to heaven. So this space right here is most sacred to them. But it's also most sacred to the nation of Israel, because this is the Holy of Holies where they met with God as well. And so that's why this right here is the hot spot. This is right here, and this is what I think is going on in Ezekiel 37, verses 15 through 28. Now, we read that before, but what it says is he's going to bring the nation together, and they're going to be one, under one. They're going to be free, and they're going to rebuild the temple. He goes on to say in verse 24, my servant will be king over them, and they will all have one shepherd. They will follow my laws and be careful to keep my decrees. They're going to put this together again. They will live in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, the land where your fathers lived. They and their children's children will live there forever, and David my servant will be their prince forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them. This is this 7-year period. It will be an everlasting, well, this is an everlasting covenant. A peace, this is the establishment of what God is about to do. Like, there's the false peace, but then there's the real peace that's coming that Jesus will institute at his second coming. It will be an everlasting covenant. I will establish them and increase their number. Now get this. I will put my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be with them. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Then the nations will know that I, the Lord, make Israel holy when my sanctuary is among them forever. The word sanctuary is a building, is a structure. So you're telling me. Now, if you look at chapter 40, the new temple area, the east gate, chapter 41, and all this stuff is a description of the temple being built and put in place. And then you go all the way over here to chapter 43, that is at the end of the tribulation, and Jesus shows up. Then the man, verse 1 of 43, then the man brought me to the gate facing east, and I saw the glory of the Lord of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roar of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. The vision I saw was like the vision I had seen when he had come to destroy the city. And he goes on to say, here he comes. Here he comes. He said, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place my soul for the soles of my feet. This is where I will live among the Israelites forever. See, this is a picture of the second coming. So, chapter 37, verses 15 through 28. I think right now we're seeing the effects of it. This war is Israel shaking off the control of the Muslim community, where they fully take over the Temple Mount. I don't know how that detail is going to play out, but somehow the mosque is going to have to be removed so the new temple can be rebuilt. And is it the possibility that the removal of the mosque is what's going to incite the Muslim community to say, oh, you don't, and Ezekiel 38 and 39 is enacted? So this is what we're dealing with here, is just the story. Now, last thing is this. Peter said in 1 Peter 3, 8 through 10, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as to the Lord is 1,000 years is a day. And it's been said that when you look at the timeline, that when they talk about the day of the Lord, that the sixth day is the day that he made man, and the desire of him to be with man and for them to be a family, that he comes to save, to unite his people, to bring them together, so that on day 7 he rests and enjoys the favor and the blessing of God and his people, which is the millennial kingdom. So what we're seeing here is we are coming quickly through the timeline to this point, and where we are is in this zone right here. And we're waiting for the rapture event. We're seeing things happen with Israel. We know that details are coming with the forming and the breaking off of the shackles. And we know that a peace treaty, a deal is coming. And that you and I will be gone, and we will come back with him. And we will see the glory of the Lord do what he is meant to do. So my time has come to an end, and I would love to talk to you further. We'll keep the conversation going. If you have any questions, please email me at rustinprofil@aol.com. And